giò này. Ông nghĩ xích lên rồi. Che è buono. No, sì.
The stick will come out in your head.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. At least the sun is shining. It's a little cold. My name is Howie Dayton. I am the acting general manager of the city's Parks, Forestry, and Recreation Division. And I'm delighted to be with you to help honor the 60th anniversary of the donation of cherry blossom sakura trees to Toronto at High Park. Today we are joined by those who help us to represent the tremendous friendship that exists between Toronto and Japan. Mayor of Toronto, Arif Virani, Member of Parliament for the riding of Parkdale High Park, Bhutila, Karpoche, Member of Provincial Parliament for the riding of Parkdale High Park, and Takako Ito, Consul General of Japan in Toronto. A round of applause for our guests. I'd first like to ask the Consul General to join me at the podium to offer her remarks.
Your Worship, Mayor Tory of Toronto, and Mr. Arif Virani, Member of Parliament for Parkdale High Park and Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, and Ms. Bhutila Karpoche, a Member of Provincial Parliament for Parkdale High Park, distinguished guests, members of the media, and friends and colleagues. On behalf of the Government of Japan, I'm delighted to donate 17 new cherry or sakura trees to Toronto as a symbol of friendship between Japan and Canada. We felt it would be most appropriate to make this donation this year, which marks the 60th anniversary of the sakura trees in High Park that were donated to the citizens of Toronto by the citizens of Tokyo in 1959. That donation was an expression of gratitude to Torontonians for the assistance they provided to the Japanese Canadians who moved to this city from Western Canada after their internment during World War II. Today's donation, which will be divided among High Park, Trinity Beltwood Park, and Cedarvale Park, comes at a time when Japanese Canadians are an invaluable part of Toronto's multicultural mosaic, and fruitful ties between Japan and Canada are stronger than ever. As sakura trees have grown and flourished, so has the Japanese Canadian community here in Toronto, thanks to the friendship and the generosity extended by Torontonians to the Japanese Canadians, and the hard work undertaken by the Japanese Canadians of various generations for the past 6 decades. We also cannot forget about the tender, loving care given to these trees by the staff of this park, as well as the Sakura ambassadors, who every year volunteer to help educate visitors on Sakura and who also protected these trees. For all the people who have contributed to this wonderful friendship, I would like to say, arigatou gozaimasu. In order for our sakura trees to flourish for a long time, please respect these trees when they are in bloom by only taking photos and just bringing back memories, not touching or taking branches or flowers.
I am delighted to be here again with you, Consul General, in your presence today, and to say thank you for the presentation of these new trees that go with the trees that have been here for so long and that mark the very important friendship that you made a reference to. And of course, it is a mark of the respect and affection that we have for Japanese Canadians in our community here in Toronto, but also for Japan and for the Japanese people, that our MP, Arif Virani, and our MPP, Bhutila Karpoche, are here as well. And I thank them very much for their attendance today to add to this occasion. As you can see, the Consul General has brought us a few very pleasant surprises here at High Park and in a couple of other parks across the city. And I think we can all agree that when cherry blossoms arrive in High Park, and I have to say when this year because they're not here yet, that it means spring is here. Notwithstanding whatever the calendar said, I think a full month ago, spring does not seem to have arrived yet this year. But I have one request and two suggestions. My request is to the media, and that I hope, because part of the purpose of today's events is to promote the magnificence of the cherry blossoms in High Park and other parks across the city, so I hope they will find a way to get some old pictures or old footage to put on television to remind people of how beautiful the cherry blossoms are, so when they come, sometime between now and Canada Day, that indeed people will know what it is that they have to come here to High Park and behold and go to the other parks. My two suggestions, first, that you should check up on something that is called a Blossom Watch on the internet that is run by the High Park Nature Center here, because it's a very excellent representation of exactly where we are in the whole blooming process. And I checked this morning just to see if there was any encouraging signs, and not really. But having said all that, based on the weather the last few days, I'm not surprised. But it does keep track of it so that you don't actually have to come out and have a look. And the second suggestion is that you should take advantage of the program the Consul General talked about. Go to a Japanese restaurant, not only have some food, but have a couple of offerings of sake and say a prayer that spring will soon come in 2019, because it's taken an awfully long time. But you know, it really is something that's been a very special part of a tradition that's gone on for many years now in Toronto. And I'm surprised, quite frankly, at the number of Torontonians who've never been to see something that in this park in particular, because I think there are more trees here than anywhere else at all the other parks. And by the way, on toronto.ca, it lists all of the other parks in the city where you can find the sakura trees, and they'll bloom, I'm assuming, at about the same time. But this has been an important part of spring in our city, and it lasts for such a short time, but it's such a treat to see the beauty of these trees in this park in particular. They were, as the Consul General said, a part of a very special gift made to the people of Toronto by the Japanese people, the people of Tokyo in particular, 60 years ago, and it has become such a part of life in our city, so it's a gift that we will never forget. And of course it's been renewed today by the addition of more trees here in High Park and elsewhere. And it's a symbol of something that I think is a special part of our history as well. If you think about it, wave after wave after wave of people. In this case, it was Japanese Canadians who had been sadly interned during the Second World War and were moving to Toronto to form a new life here. But we've had waves of other people who've come to Toronto from sometimes unspeakable circumstances around the world. And I think these are important things to remember, because it has done so much to build up our city, and especially in these times when people seem in other parts of the world to be dividing from each other and polarizing against one another. It's a time to remember this city was made. This city is an example to the rest of the world of how people can come in all different circumstances here and be welcomed and be the success that the Consul General talked about and make so many contributions. Now, I don't like to make predictions or forecasts or make commitments that I can't keep, but it says in my notes here, and of course I would always pay attention to those, that the bloom is expected to reach its peak between May 7th and May 12th. I would put an asterisk beside that and say that that is not my responsibility. That is Mother Nature, so that's why I said go and say a prayer after you've had the sake and the Japanese food. But the bottom line is, once it starts, the peak, I think, as you know, it only lasts somewhere between 5 and 10 days. And so I want to make sure that people remember that and that they don't miss the opportunity whenever it may come. I want to convey some very important news this year, which I think is a step in the right direction. For the first time this year, this park, High Park, will be closed to vehicle traffic when we hit peak bloom. It's been a big challenge for our very capable staff and for the police and for others to try and manage the incredible crush of people who come here in all different modes of transportation, but in particular it's hard to manage the cars that come. And so this year we're going to change that and encourage people to use public transit or to use bikes or to come on foot. Wheel-trans vehicles will be allowed to enter the park and will be escorted to a parking location, but otherwise, when that closure comes, and of course we don't know exactly what day it will be, but it's when peak bloom arrives, we're going to ask people to take transit or to bike or to walk. There is a TTC stop very near the park, and I think that will be just one more sign of us being respectful to one another and being respectful to the environment here in beautiful High Park, and respectful of these trees as people come and enjoy them here this year and for years to come. I will repeat the Consul General's advice, and maybe suggest it's more than advice, that we don't touch the trees and that we keep the park clean when we're here, because that's a part of visiting High Park all year as well. I should point out that some of the places where people can see the cherry blossoms in bloom include the Toronto Island, Trinity Bellwoods Park, Centennial Park, Broadacres Park, Cedarville Park, Brookdale Park, and Exhibition Place. In all of those places, we have sakura trees that are there for the enjoyment of the people of Toronto. May I okay? I hope the media heard that. It's okay. Slurping is okay. The Consul General said so. Yeah. Wait for our friends to get back.
Done.